everyone, what's up? We're back with another Scary Animations part 1, 2, 3. This time we're going to be reacting, I think it's called True Mountain Horror Story Animated, and we're going to look for another one. But the one I uploaded, I got a fresh trim, let's go, 16 hours ago. Yeah. So, here we go. 3, 2, 1. Oh, add. The classic.
God bless me, I want to know. What? How did I get the orc? Look, the divine beast has descended.
I still can't forget the man I met when I was young. The man who scared me most in the world. However, I still don't know his face. If only I could know his face, I could report him to the police now. The terrible memory from back then is still vivid in my mind as if it were yesterday. It was 20 years ago, during a hot summer when I was a middle school student. I lived in the countryside and played with my friends by the river and in the mountains every day. However, my grandmother always warned me not to go to the mountains at night, saying that faceless people roamed there, but I just thought she was trying to scare me. However, later I realized that my grandmother's words were not a joke to scare me. One day, my friend and I were playing in the mountains and didn't realize how late it was getting. As it got dark, we hurried back home, but got lost on the way. We panicked and wandered around for a while, but then I saw a man approaching us. At first I felt relieved to see him, but the closer he got, the more uneasy I felt. He asked us what we were doing there, but I got chills because his lips didn't move when he spoke. After a moment, I realized he was wearing a mask, but it wasn't a mask. It was made of someone else's facial skin. At first, I thought it was fake, but when I looked closely, I saw that it was real, and I saw several twisted marks between the skin. Suddenly, he picked up a rock and hit my friend's head. My friend fell, and the man pulled out a knife and started to cut off my friend's facial skin. I heard my friend screaming in pain. I ran away, screaming like crazy without looking back. I didn't know where I was going, and just jumped down, running towards the bottom. When I looked back, he wasn't chasing me. He was only focused on peeling my friend's facial skin. I ran further away and looked back, and he was holding my friend's skin in his hand. At that moment, I saw his real face. He grinned at me and shouted, "Come here, want to try wearing the mask?" I saw his mouth moving, but I couldn't see his features clearly from that distance. I wanted to get closer and see his face, but I was afraid I would die. I ran away again, as if going insane. After running for a while, I came back to my senses and realized that I was down the mountain. I ran back home, crying, and told my mother, who reported it to the police. The police soon arrived at the mountain and found my friend's body with his facial skin removed, but they never found the culprit. When the police asked me if I saw his face, I said yes, but it wasn't his real face. The police searched for him, but they never found him. Afterwards, the village was abuzz for a while, but as time passed, it gradually faded from my memory. After that day, no one went to the mountain again. Time passed, and I moved to the city and lived a normal life as an office worker, burying the terrible memory in my mind. But sometimes, I still think about that day and try to remember his face. I try my best to recall the man's face from my memories, but I just can't seem to see it. I've struggled to remember his face with all my might, sweating profusely, but it was always a failure. So, I am still in doubt tonight as I drift off to sleep. Who was he really? If only I had gotten closer to him back then, could I have seen his face.
That's why you don't.
Authentic
Oh,
Japanese
crap.
plushies.
That's why you don't go near stuff in the dark. You don't go near nature in the dark, because that is dead stupid and you might die. That's a lesson learnt. You must never, ever, 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 ever
Figures
do
and
that
toys.
again.
Online
'Cause
Japanese crane
that
game
is
anytime,
not.
any.
Right, we're gonna watch another one called Tom the Neighbor. I don't know when it was uploaded. I just tapped on it by accident. Okay, I'm sorry. Oh my god. Right, let's just get into it. No more messing about. Jokes aside, let's go.
Next to my house, there lived a strange man named Tom. Tom never looked people in the eyes. He always stared at their stomachs. So, I have never once made eye contact with him. Whenever Tom saw me, he always repeated the same phrase. It was, "I want a hug." He loved hugging anything. He would often be seen hugging trees or poles when passing by. Once, I saw him getting slapped when he asked a stranger for a hug. It seemed like he had an intense obsession with hugging. One day, while passing by his house, I happened to see through the open front door dozens of mannequins lined up. I was shocked, but I pretended not to notice and greeted Tom. Tom smiled brightly and still stared at my stomach, arms outstretched. After that day, Tom started to give me chills. One day, he met me in front of my house and said to me, "I want to be hugged for 100 hours, but no one will hug me." Suddenly, he asked me to hug him and came towards me with his arms outstretched. I hugged him, feeling uncomfortable. He held on to me for a long time without letting go. I told him to stop hugging me, but he didn't release. Instead, he started squeezing me tightly. I pushed him away angrily, but he didn't even flinch. He shouted, "I love hugging. Don't let go. Never." It was the first time I heard him speak so loudly, and his breathing became heavy, his heart beating rapidly. I used all of my strength to pull away from him and punched him in the face. Then he ran away to his house. I followed him to his house, still angry. Looking through his window, I saw something eerie. Tom was hugging each of the mannequins one by one. Then he kicked one of the mannequins and shouted, "It's not warm enough." A few days later, in the middle of the night, I heard a knock on the door. It was Tom, holding handcuffs. My heart sank and I held my breath. He stood there for over an hour, repeating the same gesture of hugging the air. I called the police, and after a warning, they sent him home. After that day, Tom disappeared and never came out of his house for over a month. I went to his house, but there was no response. And despite several more weeks passing, Tom was nowhere to be seen. Eventually, I went to his house, and an overwhelming stench emanated from it. I eventually called the police, and they found Tom's body buried under dozens of mannequins. Among them, there was one mannequin that looked almost human, with a wig and painted eyes and mouth. Tom was lying down with the mannequin in his arms, and both of Tom's hands that were holding the mannequin were handcuffed. The cause of death was cardiac arrest.
Good. Maybe he has no friends. But, bro, you can't be trying to... He's so weird. Like, you can't be using mannequins. I bet he brought like 10,000 quid on mannequins. He's that stupid. Anyways, shall I fill one more? Alright, I will. Alright, I'll try. Ready? 3, 2, 1, go.
If you live in the UK and you've been injured within the last 2 years, then you need to check out this quiz from the compensation experts.
Let's go. Camping horror story.
This story happened when I was 16 years old.
I was living in Ohio at the time.
at the time.
Camping with my friend.
Camping with my friend
State
in the
Forest.
Zaleski State Forest.
Let's call him Mark.
Let's call him
It
Mark.
was the first time our
It was
parents
the first time our parents
had
had allowed us to go camping on our
and
own.
the last.
And the last.
When they dropped us off,
When they dropped
we
us
started
off,
searching for a
we
spot
started
to set up
searching for a
camp.
spot to
As
set
we
up
were
camp.
walking through the
As we were
forest.
walking through the forest.
We were walking for a while.
We were walking
and
for a
finally found
while
spot.
and finally found a spot.
By this time,
By
the
this
sun
time,
was beginning to
the
set.
sun was beginning to set.
We quickly put up the